All right, he's going. Uh-oh. She has been christened. Oi. Uh-oh. Her new necklace. Very attractive.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to recycle some slides from a show that I was at about a month ago or so. So I've got 20 minutes and I have a presentation that's... I have two presentations. I have a 10-minute talk and a 20-minute talk, so we're going to try to compress it to 20 minutes. So I did some designs a few years ago that were retro computer toys, so I think it's kind of relevant. So I'm going to kind of go over the design process of that real quick. Give you a little background on me. I'm a little warped and strange ever since I was a child. I was a pyro, like probably many of you. I always wanted to go places I wasn't supposed to, do things I wasn't supposed to. I started dismantling everything when I was very young, everything, to the point where my father quit giving me toys because, everything I would take apart. So eventually I started putting things back together, and that was really a pivotal
like
point for me where, I kind of felt empowered that I could actually start kind of making things, but take things apart, change a light bulb, put it back together. So I did a bunch of design, electronic stuff, and then I eventually got into building race cars. And that's what I did for about 5 years through my teens. It caused me to drop out of high school, and everyone thought that I was going to end up homeless on the street. I did the race cars for a while, and it was really hard work, so I decided I wanted to do something that didn't have as many rednecks, actually. I decided that, although I didn't know a whole lot about PCs, I would open a PC computer store. So I opened a computer store with a partner, and then we had a big fight, and it failed, and so then I opened another store to put him out of business, and it became revenge, and eventually I had 5 stores, all up the iPad corridor in Oregon. So in 2000, the retail computer market kind of fell apart. Windows got good enough that it didn't crash every 5 minutes, and everyone's uncle's cousin could build a computer in their garage, so all my businesses started failing. And so I decided that I wanted to do one of my lifelong dreams was learn chip design. So I locked myself in a room for probably a year and a half, almost 2 years, and started working with FPGAs and started doing some basic designs, some video controllers, some sound controllers, just to teach myself how to do chip design. And at one point I decided, I'm doing this video stuff and the sound stuff. Why don't I just do an old computer, like a Commodore 64? I was very fond of it because it was my first computer that I owned. So I started reverse engineering the C64, and I designed a circuit board that would be a generic, board for emulating old computers and FPGAs. So in, I think it was 2002 or something, I started the C1 project, which has 2 FPGAs on it to emulate old computers. One was dedicated to mainly video, and the other one was dedicated to I/O and the CPU and the main core of the computer. So I did a very basic Commodore 64 core for that, and I was struggling along trying to find work, doing really small design work here and there. No one really wanted to, no one believed in a high school dropout that never went to school, wouldn't trust me with their $1 million mouse sets. So I just kind of tinkered around on the C1 doing Commodore 64 things. And one day I got a call from a company over in Britain that wanted to make a Commodore 64 toy. So it's my big shot to do a real chip. So over a year, working with 2 software guys and myself, I designed the ASIC that's inside the Commodore 64 DTV. So it's full Commodore 64, contains 30 original Commodore 64 games on a flash ROM, and it's pretty much compatible with C64. I was able to trick the manufacturers into putting pinouts on it, so you can hook a disk drive to it, a PS2 keyboard, external I/O. So this kind of started my career in toys, and it's sad to say I had more flops than hits. The DTV sold a whole bunch, but then I went on to make some other ones that weren't so good.
Ooh.
I actually pulled these quotes off of Amazon.com and said that my toys were getting sold out. Annoys you with this pathetic whining sound. My kids asked if it had a pause button. I built a home arcade machine that emulated all the Williams arcade games. Thrown together, absolute piece of rubbish. Hummer Racing.
Oh.
And a few other toys in there too. These are so. Here I'll go over real quickly the timeline of how you put together a toy. I did actually 5 SKUs in about 2 years on this kind of timeline. Multiple toys in parallel. In December or November, they started brainstorming for the next year's toys just before the Christmas season. And through December, they also are kind of brainstorming and they evaluate their toys. By December, they're in full steam trying to get a dog and pony show together for a toy fair, which is the beginning of the year. So they go out and they make space models and just fake everything. They have PCs under the table, driving, howling hound toys. And they'll trick the retailers into putting orders in ahead of time. And whichever toy gets the most pre-orders, that's the ones they're going to build, and all the rest get discarded. So these big toy shows in January, February, that in Hong Kong and New York, where capable in a sense. So March and April, you get a chance to start to design the actual toy off their specs, try to figure out actually how to pull this miracle off. By May, if you're not well along the way, they start dumping features of the toy. Most of the toys are really pretty exciting. Around December when they first spec them out. Like, wow, I'd really play with that. By the time May comes and they find out that, they're going to miss their window to get it to Christmas, they start like, well, we'll just throw everything out and we'll just have a Halloween album. If you're not done by June, they're really panicking. They're just like, just make it work. Just make it work. You end up things like in July, you have to be manufacturing the toy. So they start with all the tooling. It'll be before the actual electronics is done. They're injection molding all the plastic and getting that ready. They're even trying to speculate get circuit boards built before you even have the chip done. Which in every single design I did, the circuit boards never worked. It was just wasted time. But they're hoping. August they start assembling all the boards. It's a very manual task. See this woman here, she's testing this big garbage sack full of circuit boards. She has some bins, and she's putting it in a test tube, hitting a bunch of buttons to stimulate the toy. In the bad one, she just would heave it into this big garbage can. Yes, Robert?
Jeri, that's from the Chinese factory of the DTV?
Correct. These aren't actually DTV boards, but this is a similar video game joystick made by Jack's by September, October, you've got to be on the boat. Yeah. If you miss, they have different speeds of boats from China, apparently. So if you get the ones that are like August, they're pretty cheap. If you get the ones getting closer to Thanksgiving, that's going to drop dead big. You're going to have your toys in the store by then.
Sailors, cattle.
Yeah.